We're back looking at this Python Flask WTF Five Guys example, and I just want to address two little questions that have come up. One was in our set of choices, which we are now in this example reading from JSON, but can we do some pre-selecting? Can I have a radio button among the radio group selected ahead of time, or can I have a few of the checkboxes checked sort of when we start? That was one question. And the other question was in the HTML, which is using Jinja or Jinja 2, can we get some like color coding going on to make it a little bit easier to read? So let's look at first the Python form here and do the pre-selecting part, and we can handle that at least in part with default. So I have here a set of choices for the level of cooking, and I made the default equal to medium. Now I should be matching the value. So in these choices, which are lists of tuples, we have, in this case, they're the same, but we have the second thing is what's seen by the user, and the first thing is is the value, what's used behind the scenes. I believe this should be the value. And I can set add to my RadioField another parameter or in here, default parameter, and set that equal, give it and have an argument of medium. So set the default parameter to medium, which was one of the choices. And then for the checkboxes, again, what I pass back and forth, my value in this case is a list. And so I'm making the default here mushrooms. So I'm making default equals my square brackets a list, and I'm doing mushrooms and onions values. So I have all it set up except for the Flask run down in the terminal. And let me scroll up a little bit to find my URL. There we go, control click. And now I have the medium pre-selected and mushrooms and onions pre-selected. I didn't do any pre-selecting for the burgers. So now I have cheeseburger medium, and so I didn't make the medium and the mushrooms and onion choices. They were pre-selected for me using default, and there they are. And if I go back, they're not somehow crazy permanent. So now I have mustard and onions. That's a weird choice. And medium well, mustard and onions. Okay, so we are pre-selecting, and it's not barring the user from making other choices. But if you want to do some pre-selecting, you can work with the default. And then the other question that popped up was in the HTML, and I am just looking at this as HTML. So all of this sort of Jinja with the curly curlies and the curly percents are all just coming sort of in pure white. And I have, I think for my toppings, this is the form, sorry, but in the form handler. So the app, here's the handler. In the handler, I also have, say, a for loop, or I might have an if, or I might have a set. So I have these different things in Jinja, the sort of the curly curlies, the curly percents, some keywords like if and set and for. And so one thing I did do toward this was I brought in an extension. So I looked for extensions that were Jinja, and a bunch of people seem to mention this Better Jinja. So I decided I'd go ahead and install that. It didn't have the highest rating, but it had a high rating for a lot of people having used it. So it was one with a rating of like 5, but not as many people has used it as Better Jinja, which had a 4.5. So it seemed pretty good, but that didn't do on its own any kind of formatting. But here I have my form, and then I'll also look at the handler. But in my form, if I go down here to the bottom, the HTML, I can click on that and get the select language, and then I can choose in this long list somewhere along the way is Jinja-HTML. So now it's not just being interpreted as HTML, but Jinja-HTML, and that picks these things out, sort of an obnoxious yellow. And I'm not, there are methods. So you can, right now, it's, you can even do mix like this. I've just changed this one file is Jinja HTML, and this one's HTML without any Jinja in it. So I can mix within a given project. I can play with some settings and get it to always choose Jinja. I don't think I want to do that, at least not at this point. But so here we see the curly curlies and the curly percents in the form, but let's repeat it again. Down here, it's got, when I click on a Python file, it's telling me something about Python. It's like reading the extension, knowing what kind of file it is. So the HTML, it's selecting just basic HTML, but I can also move this one over to the Jinja HTML a little bit more. And I can see the purple, that it understands the word set, the words for and in, the for, the end for, the set. So these I get some color coding. So I had, somebody asked, get me some color coding. I like color coding, so here's at least one way to get it, at least sort of on sort of a quick, easy fix. If you want, if you look at it on the internet, there are ways to put it into the settings, so then it's sort of always the choice. I'm not ready to go there yet, but it is sort of handy to sort of highlight the Jinja that is going on just by a quick click and pick from the list, make it sort of Jinja aware. That's what I wanted to show you in this one. Thanks for your attention.